All right. Testing, testing, testing. Do we have any echoes in the background?
Mm-mm.
Okay, good. Okay, just checking. All right, then let's begin. Greetings, everyone. Sorry for the delay. Welcome to another Shadow Council episode. Or as we now, let me show you kind of like introduction to what we're going to be talking about this. But basically, saying one simple line, which is this the real life, or is this just fantasy? That's it. No more lines because then I'll be copyrighted up my ass.
Wait, you
Uh,
gotta sing it.
oh no
Come on, sing it. Sing it.
not
Sing it. Sing it.
forget it. I'm not risking any copyright strike or anything. Forget it.
If you sing it, I'll sing it.
Uh, I'm gonna have to get really pissed if I'm gonna sing it. But like, trust me, I'm not planning to do it sober. So forget it. Anyway, let's just try to stick to the plan. Basically, all my followers of darkness, shadows, scavengers, and villainy aficionados, welcome to another Shadow Council episode. And just with a line and a little pish talking, basically, our topic today is going to be fantasy. Yep, you heard it, fantasy. And I'm your good old host, Lord of Shadows, and this is my co-host.
TK, what's up?
Right, yeah. Again,
And
TK.
And apparently Cosmo. Say hi, Cosmo.
Hi there, Cosmo, Mustachio Dogashio. Welcome,
right,
welcome, welcome to Shadow Council. Now, basically, as I put it before a few seconds ago, this is going to be all full-on fantasy talking. Now, there are some rules that I'm going to say right away. So, no superheroes talking, no Disney, no Pixar, no DreamWorks. Like, this is going to be just full-on fantasy in general. Now, when we talk about fantasy, what do we think about it? Knights, dragons, wizards, witches stirring their cauldrons, goblins, gnomes, curses, magic, and the list is long. Yeah, that's what we think of fantasy. So here we are, talking about a very broad topic, but we're just going to try to put it together. Kind of like a Mission Impossible thing, but we'll try to keep it on.
So now would be a good time for you all to take bets whether we can actually put it all together.
Yeah, the bet is basically how long will we keep this up, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, let's start with a simple question. Now, what was your very first ever introduction? Now, this could be like TV shows, movies, cartoons, basically any type of like media you could choose. But what was your very first introduction to fantasy?
That's a good question. I would say I have to go back a little bit in time. Hang on one sec.
Yeah, no problem.
Hang on one sec. Give me 1 sec.
A little bit too early to have a word from our sponsor, but hey, if you want to have a good time in a pub or in this case in a good old fantasy tavern, then try on some good old pumpkin juice with a little bit of Red Bull on it. Trust me, it will not just simply get you pissed, but it will also get you full of energy.
Okie dokie. So my earliest introduction to fantasy. Let me think. Do fairy tales count?
Oh yeah, no, I told you, like all kinds of media.
Okay, fairy tales count. I would say. Actually, I was thinking before fairy tales. When I was little, I remember my grandma had a book of like fables we used to read. I think that was my earliest introduction. Yeah, I think that was my earliest introduction. How about you?
Okay, fair enough. Now, when I was since I was a little nipper, basically, like almost every single kid, well, at least back in my time, I was introduced to fantasy through the Grimm brothers fairy tales. Like all the way from like Snow White, Rapunzel, Cinderella, Bluebeard, you name it. But like if I have to choose like from a media, like as a overall like movies or TV shows outside, everything I named before, I would say my very first introduction. Now this might sound like a cliche, but I'm not kidding you. My very first introduction to fantasy on the screen, let's put it that way, was literally Lord of the Rings. Now, like I said, when I was little, just like you, I was introduced to fairy tales, but from like a movies and TV shows standpoint or cartoons, it was literally Lord of the Rings.
Now, see, if we're talking movies or TV shows, I have two. One is going to be kind of cliche, but I think it's probably a lot of people's first introduction is The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then the other TV show, I don't remember how old I was when I got introduced to it, and it's kind of dumb. I don't know if anybody's going to remember it, but Mrs. Pigglewiggle.
Holy shit, I haven't seen that, like, I would say like 100 years. Holy shit. Oh my God, that brings back memories.
Wow. That might be my... I don't know if that came before. I don't know. I think it would be between those two, which would have been my first like media introduction to it.
Now, but movies, like I told you, is Lord of the Rings, but TV shows, my very first introduction was when it comes to TV shows. I mean, let me think, because this I have to like really dig up into like deep down in my past. Fantasy. Let me think. Yes, now I remember. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but my TV show introduction to fantasy was actually Simsalagrim. It's basically every single episode is basically a Grimm brothers story. Ooh. And basically you have two characters. Basically, one is called Dr. Crocky and the other one is called Yo-Yo. And basically, no, I'm not kidding you. That's how they're called.
Yo-Yo?
Yeah, Yo-Yo. Or was it Yo-Yi? No, I think it was Yo-Yo. I'm not sure. But anyway, like one, basically those two characters are basically like these dolls that came back to life through the book of the Grimm brothers. And basically they go like on these adventures, like on this like many different Grimm brothers, like fairy tales, basically. It's basically it's now to be fair, Simsalagrim is not actually like a American production. It's actually a German production. It's actually a German TV series, but I do remember it was dubbed in English as well at one point, but I used to watch it like on Italian dub and the Croatian dub, but it's a very popular like children like TV show in Germany, very popular.
Yo-Yo, so I guess that character was a little bit wound up then.
Well, it's basically look.
I'm sorry, that was bad.
I mean, look. Dr. Crocky is basically like a pink-red reptile, and Yo-Yo is kind of like it's kind of like a small blue wolf that kind of looks like a jester. I don't know how to explain it, because again, they're plush toys that come to life, But like Crocky looks like a reptile, and Yo-Yo is like or Yo-Yi, I'm not sure again, but like. It's like I think like he's like a wolf that is blue and looks like a jester, basically. Yeah, it was a very fun TV show. I mean, even like today, I'm not kidding you. Even today, sometimes I would like go like on YouTube and like I will try to find some episodes and I will watch them. Just just for the fun of it, kind of like bring me back to my childhood. Now. I will say that now. I want to ask you a question and like to kind of like make it more interesting. Now, again, this might be difficult. Maybe not. Maybe yes. I don't know. But what is your favorite like fantasy movie, and what is your favorite fantasy TV show?
Okay. So movie, I need to think about that. I'd probably say the Chronicles of Narnia.
Okay, okay,
I'd
I'll
probably
accept
say,
that.
and then TV show. Oh boy. I'm trying to think of one I've watched recently.
Again,
Fantasy
this
TV show.
again, this is gonna be a tough one because there's a lot of fantasy TV shows out there. But you could like again, you can choose from your past, and you can choose like the recent ones if you want.
I'm trying to think. Okay, well, I have a fantasy TV show, although I don't know if it counts for this or not. But Troll Hunters.
Well, no, it counts. It counts.
Now, I'm going to add one thing though. My favorite fantasy book series, is Aragon.
Yeah, I kind of was suspecting you're gonna say that.
I really like that. I'm reading the spinoff Murtaugh now. It's really good. As far as spinoffs go, it's really good. The dynamic between Murtaugh and Thorn is really, really different from Aragon and Sapphira.
I want to ask this because you mentioned the spin-offs before, but is it done by the same writer or someone else?
Yeah, it's the same guy.
Oh, okay. Then I will accept it if he tries to like expand, its own his own world and everything.
I kind of hope he keeps going because I think there's more that he can do with that world. And I also read, I think at Disney, I think it's Disney. It might be Netflix. One of the two. One of the two has the rights to do like a live action series of it, like TV show. I really, really hope that's true, and I really, really hope they do because I think that could be a really good fantasy TV show.
Oh, like most definitely. I think like Aragon would have been much more. Just like the same thing. I think just like the same thing. I always talk about Chronicles of Narnia as well.
Yeah.
I think like Aragon. I mean, I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but and I haven't read all the books. Just so you know, I haven't read all the books. I think like I read only like the first two, I think. But overall, I always thought that Aragon would actually be more acceptable when it comes to viewership as a TV show than actually like a series of movies, because like
it kind of lends itself more to that because there's Aragon and stick with me on this analogy. Aragon is the same thing. So there's a new movie coming out in a couple weeks, which actually was going to fall into fantasy too. Wicked, which is the prequel sort of to The Wizard of Oz with the two witches.
Yeah.
And it's a Broadway show, and they split it into two parts because there was so much to cover in it. And I think that's the same case with Aragon. Is all four of the books, I guess 5 now with the spinoff. They all cover a lot of stuff, and I think a lot. If you did a book, if you adapted one book per movie, you'd have to cut a lot of stuff that I think.
Yeah.
And then the story would not be as good. So I think that I think you're right. I think it would be more. It's going to be more acceptable as a TV show, and it's probably going to play out better.
Yeah, I mean, like the same thing. I mean, I have to go back to, like I said, the same thing. I have to go with to Chronicles of Narnia as well because, for me personally, the Chronicles of Narnia for me were always kind of like my fantasy guilty pleasure, even though I know the movies were flawed, as they went further and everything. But there's so much in it, that I really, really enjoyed, fantasy wise and everything. So, but I always thought that, even like with the stories going around that Greta Gerwig actually made a deal with Netflix to do Chronicles of Narnia.
Mhm.
But even still, I think like Chronicles of Narnia, just like Aragon, that's one thing I do agree with you. I think it will fit more as a TV show than rather than a movie, because when you're doing a movie, you have to how can I put this? You have to only take like most important elements from the books
Yeah.
and turn them into like a movie. But when you're doing a TV show, you can extend it
Yeah.
as much as necessary, to kind of like explore more of like in my case the world of Narnia, and to kind of like extend story wise like what is going on and everything.
Well, they're I might be wrong about this. I thought I read this somewhere. Aren't they going back and readapting Harry Potter into a TV series?
Yeah, that's true. By the way, it looks like Adam Driver is going to be Snape in this TV show.
See, I think that's smart, because my gripe with the Harry Potter movies was I liked them. I thought they were good, but my gripe with them is I feel like, especially the final movie, the final battle and everything, they cut and changed way too much in it.
I will say this. I will go as far as say this. If they do, one thing I did learn is that the TV show is gonna be more like centered around the books when it comes to the overall source material. I think like this time they're gonna stick to the books more than what, for example, David Yates and the other directors did with the Harry Potter movies. And I'm really hoping, because the thing is, if they stick to the books, and even though I can already imagine that the Harry Potter TV show is going to be under a lot of thunder, that's for sure. Like, it's going to be a fucking like triple twister with like the way how the fans will look at the TV show. But the point is, I'm really hoping they're going to do Voldemort design wise. They're going to do him right, because like the thing is, in the actual books, he actually looked way more gruesome and way more scary than, for example, Ralph Fiennes, looked like in the movies. Because if I remember correctly from the books, he again, I haven't read them in a long time, but I do remember somewhere reading that he was supposed to look like a very Dementor, death kind of like face. Like very like he basically would look like a dark wizard from horror movies, basically. If I'm correct, like if I remember correctly, that's how he's supposed to look. So I'm really hoping that they're gonna stick to his original design this time. I mean, I think they could, but again, the Harry Potter TV show, again, it's a topic I don't usually like to discuss, because like you have to admit, even though the movies did sometimes changes, even though with J.K. Rowling's approval, it's gonna be hard. Okay, it is gonna be hard to look at the show because of all the actors and everyone who was in the movies. Like Daniel Radcliffe and as Harry Potter, Alan Rickman as Snape, Maggie Smith as McGonagall. Like Richard Harris, and then Michael Gambon as Dumbledore, Ralph Fiennes as Voldemort. Like, it's gonna be hard. Okay, it's gonna be hard to adapt to this version. I mean, don't you agree?
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard, But I will say this: I do hope they do good. I do hope that, I hope they became popular. But still, even to this day, I'm sorry, but I'm just sticking to the movies, honestly. I mean, again, or more precisely, I will stick to the books and the movies, But I will give the TV show a chance for sure. Now, one of the things. This is gonna be hard, but I'm kind of curious to kind of like to see what we're gonna say. Now, who is your favorite ever like fantasy character? Now, this is a tough one.
I can't choose Mephisto, right?
No, he's on the satanic category. Sorry, we don't have any pentagrams lying around.
I might say Aragon, although I don't know. I'm either going to say Aragon, or I'm going to say, for comedic reasons, Don Quixote.
Oh, Okay. Now, my favorite fantasy ever, favorite like fantasy character. Ooh, this is gonna be a hard one. But my favorite, I'm honestly, I'm kind of going back to the classics. Like my favorite, fantasy character will always be Merlin.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'm going and again, I'm not talking about the Disney Merlin from Sword in the Stone. I'm kind of like talking like Merlin in general. I mean, I was always a wizards, witches type of character guy, but uh, I'm gonna go all the way back to the good old fashioned golden age of fantasy, which of course is gonna be Merlin. You know, now no, which I know for some people is going to be very shocking because they I believe they already think we're going to talk about like famous franchises and all of that, but no, we're sticking to actual fantasy.
Okay, so here's a question. Fantasy. So does supernatural count as fantasy?
Depends.
Because
It depends.
Because there's a work I would put in fantasy if it counts as if supernatural counts.
It depends. I would say this. It depends on what type of story we're talking about and how fantasy level property is.
Okay, then I'm gonna. I don't know if this is gonna fit or not, but the hell that I'm gonna try. So I'll preface it with saying the movie, is definitely not fantasy. It's horror. But then, and you probably will know what I'm talking about when I say this next part. But the TV show follows the book a lot closer, and it's a lot more supernatural fantasy, I think, than the movie was.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
I'm kind of have an idea, but enlighten me.
All work and no play.
Oh. Oh, you're talking. Wait. I'm still like kind of in the fog, but I think I know what you're talking about. I think I know what you're talking about. Help me. Oh God. Okay, I get it. What you're talking about, but I totally forgot the name.
The Shining.
Yes. The Shining. Right. Oh, The Shining. I mean,
I feel like the book and the TV. I don't know.
The Shining. Oof. I mean, if you'd have said Dark Tower, then I would have accepted it. But The Shining. Oof. I mean, that's more of a horror type of material than fantasy.
I don't know. I feel like the book and the TV show, which, by the way, if anybody watching this knows how I can see the TV show, tell me, because I've been trying to find that TV show to watch it like forever. But from what I understand, the TV show and I read the book, but I don't know. The TV show and the book, I might put a little more into fan. I don't know.
Yeah, I get you.
I mean, the movie is definitely horror. The movie definitely isn't fantasy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know if I put that in fantasy or not.
I don't know. I mean, I always kind of put The Shining into more like a horror territory than actually fantasy. So, even though it does have some fantasy material, it's more like towards I would say, it's more like towards horror than fantasy. But still, I appreciate it. I still appreciate it. Yeah. Now, I will say this: when it comes to overall fantasy, one of the things I always loved, because fantasy throughout the ages, they brought us a lot of things. We said, I've said before, from kings and queens to dragons to fairies to pixies, goblins, magic and curses and knights in shining armor, all the way to like trolls and giants and like all sorts of like different like mystical mystical creatures and everything, or should I say like even like type of characters. But one thing I want to ask you, who
Mhm.
are your favorite like type of characters? Now, again, type, not like
Hmm.
actual characters. Who are your favorite type of fantasy characters
Hmm.
or category, if that makes it easier?
Um. Hmm. Hmm. I'd say wizards. Witches, definitely witches. Um, especially if they're played by Mila Kunis.
Okay.
Uh, um, wizards, witches. Dragons.
Of course, all-time favorites.
Um, Witcher, wizards, witches, dragons.
Witcher. I never heard of that one before.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that's what. Well, when a wizard and a witch love each other very, very much.
So all you need to do is basically connect a wizard and a Richard,
Yeah,
and you create a Witchard.
yeah.
Wow, looks like we have created a brand new type of fantasy character this
Yeah.
time. Like, wow, swell for us.
If anybody if anyone out there wants access to this cool idea, call us. We'll charge $5 million and you can have it.
Nah. Let's be reasonable, okay? Let's charge it 20.
Okay, yeah, 20.
That's more reasonable. That's more reasonable. But okay, so correct. So if I understood correctly, you said wizards, dragons, witches, and what else?
Maybe warlocks.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I always said
the only warlock I've ever seen in any movie is the one in the Scooby Doo and the Witch's Ghost.
Oh yeah, the Ravencroft guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Played by Tim Curry. Yeah. I mean, warlock. Here's the thing for me. I always when one friend actually one time asked me like, what is the difference between a wizard and a warlock? And it's gonna sound stupid, but like I always said that wizards use staffs and wands for magic. Warlocks use like their hands.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it's stupid. Again, it's a stupid answer, but like I always said that, I always kind of said that it's kind of like a difference between them, And even though when it comes to wizards, I always appreciate them, I mean, I'm okay with like using wands or staffs, but like I'm more about like, using hands and like, magic through your mind and mouth, kind of guy.
I'd agree with that, I think.
Yeah. Now, for me personally, like when it comes to fantasy, my type of characters that I always really liked were, of course, naturally wizards. And I'm not gonna mention like what types of wizards. I'm just gonna say wizards in general, like including which also includes warlocks, in a way. So I would say wizards, giants. Yeah, I like giants as well. I mean, one of my favorite fairy tales was always like Jack and the Beanstalk and Jack the Giant Killer. I always like that. I mean, I'm also one of the very few people who loves Jack the Giant Slayer movie. Yeah, I mean, it's even still today when it comes to fantasy. Even still today is like one of my guilty pleasures. But so wizards, giants. I'm a very big sucker when it comes to gnomes, and also I would choose.
Gnomes.
Beg your pardon?
Gnomes. I forgot about gnomes.
Yeah, gnomes, and I will also choose. Let me think. You know what? Screw it. We've seen them millions of times. I'm also going with dragons, just like you. You know, actually, which is one of my favorite like dragon like theme movies.
Hmm.
It's very underrated, but also at the same time popular. But I still think it's very underrated. Dragonheart with Sean Connery voicing the dragon.
Oh, yeah.
That is a very very underrated fantasy movie, and I really like it.
What about I saw it. What year did it come? Last year, the year before, Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, Honor Among Thieves.
Yeah, that was funny.
That was hilarious. Now, when I was watching, I was like, "Now that's a fucking fantasy movie," and I love that. Like, because one of the problems. Here's the thing. One of the problems for me for a long time was, that they try to modernize fantasy so much, like especially when it comes to like putting their characters and the story in the present time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, look, there are some exceptions, like for example, troll hunters in this case. There are some exceptions, but like the thing is that like sure you can do it like like a few times, but doing like every single time it gets annoying. It really gets annoying. And I was like, what happened to the times where you can do a fantasy story like literally in a fantasy world, like again filled with like what we mentioned before millions of times, wizards, giants, dragons, goblins, witches, kingdoms, kings and queens, princes to rescue, like why? I mean, I was like, why can you not do more shows like full on fantasy? I mean, like because again there's so many, and again it's kind of like turning on in that direction a little bit, especially like when you look at shows like The Witcher or The Wheel of Time, or even like, well, before it got canceled, Shadow and Bone. Like you can see it's kind of like turning, kind of like going full on fantasy, but like for example, there is, I don't know if you ever heard of it, but like there's a movie that has become a really great success on Netflix. It's full on fantasy, but it's Diego Luna actually voiced one of the main characters in the movie. Let me just search for a little bit, just a second. What's it called? Just give me a second. What's it called? Okay, just give me a second. Let me think. All right. Okay, where is it? Oh my God. I can't. Wait, was it him? It wasn't Diego. Was it Diego Luna or someone else? Oh shit. Just a second. Oh my God. I like movie. Oh shit. Here it is.
Is shit the name of the show?
No, there it is. I found it. Oh my God. I found it. Oh no! Fuck! It's not Diego Luna. It's Riz Ahmed. He's the one who voiced the knight in this movie, not Diego Luna. Yeah, and Chloe Grace Moretz voiced the main character. Basically, the movie is called Nimona. Basically, very popular hit Netflix animated movie, and basically it's a fantasy movie with a little bit of science fiction in it, But basically, it's a fantasy movie, and you have knights, you have queens, you have like Nimona is this kind of like shape-shifting monster. And like, so basically you have a lot of like fantasy material in it, but my main problem was it is basically kind of like centered in a very futuristic kingdom. Again, I respect the idea, but it's not my type of fantasy. Like, or even like, for example, there's another TV show that was based, I think, like I don't know if I don't know if it was like original or based on a series of books, but it's called Daniel Spellbound, basically. And Daniel Spellbound is this kid who's kind of like hunting for like magical relics or something, and he has like a pig, talking pig, as a sidekick basically. And again, full on fantasy with a little bit of science fiction, but like mostly like 95% is fantasy. But again, set in the present time. And now I don't know what's your opinion about it, like, but for me personally, like I really wish that they go back to the original, like fantasy type like area, because for me, putting fantasy in the present time, it's kind of getting annoying a little bit. I mean, what do you personally think about it?
Yeah, I agree. Although there is one fantasy show, you just jogged my memory of a fantasy show. I didn't actually think of it as fantasy, but I think it is fantasy. I'm trying to think of it. Yeah, it'd be fantasy, maybe a little science fiction, but it'd be fantasy, I think. It was an animated show. It was on Kids WB years ago. I think all I need to say is one exclamation, you might get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Say it one more time.
Yeah.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. I just wanted to hear it again. Okay. I get your point. I
could have also said, "Oh, bad day, bad day, bad day."
Yeah, you could have, but I prefer the first one. Much more entertaining. But yeah, I get where you're going with this. Yeah, I mean, it had some interesting material, but like again, I mean, did you personally enjoyed it?
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't watched it in a while, but I don't know. I mean, I was always kind of like 50-50 on that.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of other fantasy.
Please remind me. What was the title again?
Jackie Chan Adventures.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, of course. I mean, now sometimes I can be such an ass. Like, I mean, I knew it was Jackie Chan, and I was like, what was the title? And I'm like, it's the simplest title of all. Jackie Chan Adventures. I mean, for fuck's sake. Like a simple. I mean, that is. I mean, okay. That he has some like fantasy material in it. He does have some fantasy elements. That's for sure. It does, and it's actually like it's also funny you should mention it. Like it was also a TV show I grew up with. And I always wonder, like it's called Jackie Chan. But why did they never got Jackie Chan voicing himself?
Yeah. Well, what's ironic? I found out that the guy who they had voicing Jackie Chan also voiced Monkey in Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness.
Yeah.
Who Jackie Chan also voiced.
Yeah.
So
at least they knew who they have to pick up.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point, though. They had those like segments for the first couple seasons at the end of the show, like with Jackie, like after the show where like a viewer would ask a question or something. Yeah. But they never actually had him like doing the voice in the show.
I think like I think like the bestest theory that we can shoot right now is that he was too expensive to get voice himself every single episode.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They probably would have paid out the nose for him.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I will give credit to the guy who tried to make an impression of Jackie Chan. I do give him credit for trying to make an impression. Trying to like mimic the tone of the voice and like the sounds that he makes, especially when he's fighting or doing like something comedic. Like I give him praises for that, for trying.
The other show I might put in that same category of fantasy, and the element of this show that I think was fantasy were the showdowns, is Shaolin Showdown. I don't know, that's sort of as fantasy, I think, to a degree. I
haven't watched it, so you have to like explain a little bit to me.
So they had, I mean, I guess it would be fantasy with the Wengun Wu. They were how would I describe the Wengun Wu? They were like artifacts that had like supernatural powers,
Okay.
and like to obtain one, you had to like touch it, and then you had to challenge the other person to a showdown, and then the showdown would be it would sort of like a game, but it would be kind of like almost like in an alternate universe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, that might be a little bit fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, I haven't seen it, so I can't actually kind of discuss it. But like like I said, sometimes look, when you're modernizing, let's put it this way: when you're modernizing fantasy,
Mhm.
sometimes it works. Sometimes, for me personally, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Like there's all sorts of stories, like a few of them even I mentioned before, that will work way more if you like actually put them like in an actual fantasy world. Like let's make it easier. If you try to put like in, let's just say in the Middle Ages, let's put it that way. If you try to put like in a Middle Ages fantasy world rather than like put it in the present time, because like some stories work, some stories they don't. I mean, do you understand where I'm going
Yeah.
with this? Okay, so again, it depends, like what kind of a story you're saying. It depends on like what you're trying to show or where basically the story is going. But but I'm an old fashioned guy where basically like if you're gonna have like a story about wizards, then let's make it like an actual fantasy story about wizards.
Mhm.
Like in the actual like fantasy world, or like if you want to tell a story about knights, because again, going back to the Nimona movie, it was an interesting idea. I liked the overall story, the humor, and everything. But again, it wasn't my type of fantasy, you know. But I will give credit to like there are some exceptions. There are some exceptions that actually work. Like for example, Harry Potter, that works. We talked about it before, like Tales of Arcadia in general, like from troll hunters all the way to wizards, like that also works. And there are also like other TV shows of fantasy like that I remember from my past that also kind of like some of them work in the present time. Like for example, okay, I'm kind of going. I'm kind of going like maybe like off the road a little bit, because I know or should I say or as I like to say it, I'm going a little bit into the girly territory right now. But there's a show that was based on the kind of like Italian manga, just simply called Witch. Just simply called Witch. Where basically, again, I haven't seen that in a long time, but basically, unfortunately, like the show only lasted 2 seasons, which basically kind of like I think like they went through like the first 2 volumes, I think, but like but overall, basically, it's a story about like this a group of girls who are basically kind of like like in the actual present time, they're kind of like in I think they were like in high school, I think. But basically like they're in high school, but like they're also like go in this fantasy world where basically you have like all sorts of like goblins and witches and fairies and everything, and they also kind of like doing challenges to kind of like become actual witches, and each and every one of them symbolizes an element like fire, water, and so on and so forth. But again, it's a kind of like a girly project, but like it has a very interesting story. And that actually, and again, it's kind of like a mixture of present and actual fantasy, but it does it in a way that actually like it really makes the story much more interesting. I mean, I don't know if you ever heard of this. I think you would like it. It's kind of like a very similar to kind of like manga anime type of story. It's kind of very similar, but I will say that he still has like a very interesting story that will kind of like keep you going in a way. And also it's a very very popular comic book in Italy.
Oh, I just thought of something that kind of trended into fantasy, at least with the Disney Plus TV show, is the Santa Clauses.
Well, in a way, with a Christmas spirit. Let's just add it that way.
I hope they continue. I really hope they continue that show.
Yeah. Also, when it comes to like TV shows, actually, when it comes to, remember when I told you about introduction to like my own introduction to TV when it comes to fantasy?
Yeah.
Remind me, what was the answer I gave?
Oh boy. TV show.
Yeah.
Oh boy. I remember the movie, the franchise. You said Lord of the Rings.
What was the TV show I said?
Oh boy. Oh boy.
No. Anyway. Let's forget it. I'm just gonna change my answer because the actual TV show that kind of introduced me to the fantasy world, I'm gonna change it. Smurfs.
Ooh.
That okay? TV show wise, that was my introduction to fantasy. Not the TV show or whatever I said. Smurfs is the right answer. Oh my god! I don't know. When was the last time you watched Smurfs?
Oh boy. It's been a while.
Man, like I mean, okay, the live action movies are a guilty pleasure of mine. Very guilty pleasure. I mean, Hank Azaria as Gargamel. That's a fucking like they fucking nailed it with the role of Gargamel. But sometimes I will go back and watch like the Smurfs TV show. Like there's something about it, like from the song, from the characters, like man, it brings back so much nostalgia. So much nostalgia.
I didn't even think of Smurfs, but yeah, I didn't even think of Smurfs.
Yeah, so when it comes to my introduction to TV fantasy, I'll change it to Smurfs because that was like like that was my TV introduction to fantasy actually. Unless unlike whatever the answer I said before. Also speaking of like fantasy done right, actually what was the recent thing that kind of shows like fantasy being done right? The Legend of Vox Machina. Me and FRC, we watched all three seasons of The Legend of Vox Machina. Have you ever watched it?
I know. What's it about?
Basically, okay, it's the TV show is based on a Critical Role / Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And basically it's about like a group of like how can I put this? Let's just say it's basically based on a group of like dirty, rotten scoundrels. Let's put it that way. Like exiled or outsiders, basically. Not a very typical fantasy superhero team. Basically, to put it easier for you, they're basically the anti-version of Fellowship of the Ring. Like instead of being like so brave and noble and all that, they're very like they're basically a group of like drunken, stubborn dickheads. Let's put it that way. Who most of the time they care about the money. But that's like again, the overall world of Legend of Vox Machina is so fantasy like, and even though the dialogue is very like Critical Role type of like playing, especially when it comes to swearing, but the overall world and the characters and the overall lore, it is so much fantasy. Like I would really suggest you to give it a shot. Like trust me, because even I at first I wasn't sure to watch it or not, but after I watched like the first 3 episodes, because he always basically was released in threes. Like the first 3 episodes I watched, I was like, okay, I'm in. Because it's so fucking cool, such a fucking cool TV show. So I will definitely give you as a recommendation to give it a shot.
I'll have to check that out. That made me think of another. I can't believe I forgot about this TV show. It wouldn't be my earliest experience, but it was one I remember watching as a kid, and it was kind of like dumb funny. It was Dave the Barbarian.
Oh my god! Wait, let me just check the pictures. Just a second. Oh my god. Yeah, I remember this. I remember
I
this. I used
completely
to watch
forgot
it.
about that one.
I used to watch it. I mean, look, let's be frank. This is basically a parody of Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah,
But also it kind of reminds me of one more thing. The TV show I grew up with, Conan the Adventurer.
Conan the Adventurer.
Oh yeah. Now this is more like Conan the Barbarian type of story. It's like it was released. The Conan the Adventurer cartoon. It was released like in the like early 90s, like I think it was like 91 or 92,
Mm.
and it went on for like for a pretty fair enough period of time and everything, but it was a such a great story. It was such a great story, really great characters, and it's kind of like a softer version of Conan the Barbarian, basically, kind of like a softer version. But again, so nostalgic. I That's another TV show I grew up with, and again, the fucking intro is one of the best I've ever seen. Oh my god, like shit. What was the shit? What was the uh I tried to remember like the what was that one? Oh shit! I tried to remember like right now. Like what was it? It's kind of like it was kind of like it was kind of like Conan the Adventurer, Conan man without fear. And then like dun, 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 dun. Like it's a very very, I would say, manly but powerful like intro, and also kind of gives you the story wise, what is happening and basically what Conan has to do, basically, it's a very, I'll send you when we finish the live stream, I'll send you the link so you can see it. Again, another TV show from the 90s I really I would suggest you to watch. It's very fun to watch. And also, I don't know if you ever like. There's another fantasy. I know this TV show was based on the comics. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but like it's a comic that actually my father actually grew up with. Um, Prince Valiant. Have you ever seen the show?
Prince Valiant.
Yeah, it's a very like Prince Valiant is a very grounded like knight like story in the Middle Ages. I
Oh
mean,
yes, I know what I know what you're talking about now.
yeah, I mean it's very grounded. Even though yes, Merlin does appear in the show, including King Arthur, but it's somehow one of the most like grounded type of fantasy project, and I loved it for what it was. I really did. I mean, have you ever seen it?
I just looked it up. I think the artwork looks familiar. I think it might have been a comic in our paper for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I have a memory of that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because yeah, I mean the TV show itself was based on the old comics from like all the way back. I think like Prince Valiant was like in the maybe like in the 80s or 70s, I think. But again, it's a comic that my father grew up with, surprisingly. He grew up with, and basically they made it into an animated TV series, and I grew up watching it, and I really really liked it. It's a very like like I said, it's a very grounded like medieval knight like TV show, but it still has a very interesting story.
Yeah, I
Speaking
remember
of,
the look. I remember the comic in the paper. It was good.
yeah, but yeah, so basically, yeah. Also, I just want to say, can I tell you like a little bit of the? Can I tell you like just for a short time the lyrics of Conan the Adventurer?
Sure.
Okay, so basically it goes like like Conan the Adventurer, Conan, warrior without fear. He's more powerful than any man whose legend ever crossed the land or sea. And then basically it tells you, like I said, the overall story, how everything happens and how it starts. Like, Conan, the mightiest warrior ever. His quest to undo the spell of living stone cast upon his family, but driving the evil serpent man back into another dimension and vanquishing their leader, the cruel wizard Rafamon. Something like that, basically. And I would say this, I love those old style intros. Kind of like, they give you kind of like a theme song, but at the same time, they also kind of explain what the story is all about. I really miss those days. To kind of like, don't get me wrong, there are some filler episodes, but he has an overall story, So I but again, those kind of theme songs, oh my God, I really miss those days. I really do. Speaking of, have you ever watched Quest for Camelot?
I haven't.
Really? It's basically about a girl who wanted to be a knight, member of the Knights of the Round Table. It was about this Excalibur, and tried to find it for King Arthur. And she kind of like allied herself with a two-headed dragon and a guy who's blind.
Oh, yes.
Gary Oldman voices the main villain.
Yeah.
Saruba. Man, oh my God. This is also one of my all-time favorite like fantasy movies.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, it's a really great movie. Like sometimes when I'm like in a mood for fantasy, this is like one of those movies that I will always watch.
Yes. Okay, I remember now. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Now here's a much more difficult question for you. Who is your favorite like fantasy villain? That's a little bit tough, but I want to ask you like.
Fantasy villain. I'd say Galbatrax from Aragon.
Okay, fair enough.
How about you?
Oh, look, I will say this. There is a lot of great fantasy villains out there. I will say this. There are a lot. But my favorite one, now, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie or heard of it, but there's an old movie, an old anime movie from the 80s called The Flight of Dragons. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I don't think I have.
Flight of Dragons. So basically, as I said, it's a movie. It's an anime movie from 1982, I think. That's basically when I think that's what basically when it was made. And basically, the animation type of that movie, it very much resembles of the one how the anime Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit were made. The style, the style of animation. It's also very similar to another anime movie called The Last Unicorn. But overall, like Flights of Dragon. The Flight of Dragon, basically. It's basically about a story about basically there's like a group of like 4 wizards who discover that basically their magical world is dying, and they try to create like a magical shelter, basically, like outside humanity, because how humanity evolves, they kind of stopped believing in magic. Like they started to believe more in science, logic, and so on and so forth. So there's a villain. So the main villain of the Flight of the Dragons is a red wizard called Omadon, and is voiced by what?
Omadon. Okay.
Yeah, Omadon. Ommadon. Omadon. And he's the red wizard of the council. He's the red wizard because he have like 4 wizards. One is red, one is blue, one is gold, and the other one is green. So Omadon is the red wizard, and he's the main villain of the story. And basically, the guy, and Omadon, by the way, is voiced by James Earl Jones. He voices this Omadon character, and like I remember watching this movie on our Croatian channel all the way back when I was little, and it was released in like actual English with like Croatian subtitles. But when I saw that character Omadon, I mean, again, those were the times when we had like other villains like Sauron, Voldemort. We had also many other different fantasy villains, including also Saruba from Quest for Camelot. We had the lady from Willow, and so on and so forth. Even though that was like way back then. But for me on TV, the one that really made a big impression on me was Omadon, this red wizard. And if I had to choose a fantasy villain that is my favorite, I would choose Omadon. Because like there's a very particular, the thing is, there's a very particular scene in the Flight of Dragons movie that is like at the very beginning, and basically the wizards were talking about how humanity is evolving and how they're trying to create this magical shelter.
Mm-hmm.
But Omadon, the red wizard, who is kind of like the dark side of magic. Basically, he basically made a speech of how he's gonna influence humanity, basically kind of through his dark power, he's gonna bring in the dark side of humanity from brother turning against brother, wars, greed, poverty, basically literally what is going on in the real world today. Basically, and there's like a moment in the movie where he's like, and I'll show humanity how to fly like a fairy, in which basically you see the planes dropping the nuclear bomb, literally like again, because I told you it involves humanity as well, and that speech was so powerful, so good. Like, it's literally one of the greatest villain speeches I've ever heard of. One of the best villain speeches. Like, even because there's one side, the other part of the speech when he's like, "Where your power dies, mine will flourish," because he's the evil. He represents evil and everything. So good. So yeah, my favorite fantasy villain is the Red Wizard Omadon. Oh my god! Like my mother. I remember my mother actually didn't first she didn't want me to watch this movie because she felt like the designs of the characters looked so creepy and scary, especially the villain. She felt like it would give me nightmares. But literally every scene he was in, I was like, wow, he's so good. I like this guy. I like this character. Seriously, I would suggest you to watch Flight of the Dragons. It's a very underrated but very great anime movie. Also, as I mentioned before, have you ever seen The Last Unicorn?
The Last Unicorn.
Again, another movie that was made in the 80s based on the book, literally called The Last Unicorn. And again, same type of animation as I mentioned, like Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and the Flight of the Dragons, but same style. But my question is, have you ever watched it?
No.
Again, another movie I will definitely suggest you to watch because it's really good. It's a little bit, now I will warn you, the movie itself is a little bit heavy when it comes to the story itself and emotions and all of that. Like it's a little bit heavy, and the ending is bittersweet, but it's a really powerful movie, you know. And also, the main villain is voiced by Christopher Lee himself.
Christopher Lee.
Saruman, Count Dooku.
Okay. Yeah, now I know. Okay.
Yeah. It's another very underrated fantasy movie that I will definitely suggest you to watch.
The Last Unicorn. Okay.
Yep. Literally, the main character is this unicorn. Literally, you know. And again, I don't want to go into details because I don't want to spoil you the overall movie itself, you know. But it's a very I will say this: if you have any emotions in your body, it will hit you. It will hit you a lot of times because again, it's at times the movie it's heavy, at times. So if you have any emotions in yourself as a human, then it will hit you. Unless you are cold as ice, then it's a different story. Now, yep. Now, do you have any questions? I'm just asking for fun.
I don't think so.
No, I just wanted to be fair, you know, kind of like, you know, not being me leading the way all the time.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm trying to think of some. I can't think of any right now, though.
Oh, fair enough. I want to ask you, like, this is gonna be a very odd question, but when we talk about like fantasy villain, what is for you the perfect fantasy villain? How would you describe a perfect fantasy villain? It's an odd question, but I really wanted to ask you.
How would I describe the perfect fantasy villain? That's a good question. Probably I would say the perfect fantasy villain. I need to think. Why don't you answer this first and I'll answer?
Well, for me, I wanted to ask you first because for me personally, it has different layers. You know, like when it comes to a perfect fantasy villain, that's why I wanted to ask you first because for me, it has many different layers. It depends on, like, you know, for example, when I'm trying to create a story, it depends like which direction I'm going. You know, but for me, you know, so like for instance, let me see. For instance, there's a story I'm kind of like developing for myself. Like there's a story I'm developing that kind of like, you know, it centers around you know, the world of magic, you know, and the main characters are wizards. Again, it's like some one of my friends were joking when they said, like, you know, it kind of reminds me of Harry Potter, but this story I'm doing has nothing to do with Harry Potter. It has nothing to do with that. Basically, at times it gets very fantasy, like, you know, like almost like Lord of the Rings level. But basically, the villain in that story for me is the main villain is the main villain who is basically this dark wizard who was like one of the first wizards in the history of magic. Like, for example, as you know, humanity, we have Neanderthals and other, like, you know, Stone Age, like, you know, caveman. You know, in my story, the same thing is with wizards. You know, like the magical world also had their own caveman. Let's put it that way, when it comes to the founders of magic, and this dark wizard is one of them, was one of them. Basically, a guy who, after the first great magic war, was supposedly be defeated, but then with with twists and turns. I don't want to go into too much into details. He returned, and he was like among humanity all these centuries and everything. And basically, let's just say his point of views on magic changed throughout the ages. You know, I mean, again, it's very difficult to kind of describe what I'm trying to say right now, because again, if I wanted to describe this particular villain, I would have to go into straight details, and I really don't want to take that much time on you, because we would have been here day and night. But basically, let me put it this way. This dark wizard is basically a villain that sees himself at the end as a hero of his own story.
Okay, so I go. So maybe you asked about fantasy villains, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I would say fantasy villains. A good fantasy villain has to have, they have to be fleshed out, kind of. They have to have like motivations, I think, or like some kind of backstory.
Yep.
I mean, you could go in. You could go in with them randomly, or not randomly. You could go in with them without a backstory, but I think they're more effective with a backstory. I think a fantasy villain is also kind of effective, and this kind of sort of goes into a different area, sort of. But a fantasy villain is also kind of effective, I think, when you can kind of sympathize with them, and also when they're called the villain, but you don't necessarily see them as the villain. Like they're more an antagonist than a villain.
I get it. I get it.
I'm trying to think what else.
I mean, like for to give to while you're thinking, like, well, to give one example, the character in my story that I'm writing, like I said, at the beginning, when he was part of the very first Wizards, when magic was created, he was an overall, like, pure evil guy. Like, he was there for, like, power, conquest, and all that. But in my story, throughout the ages that he was with humanity and everything, he changed. He became more open-minded. He became more, you would say, sympathetic, in a way. Like, even though what he's trying to do is evil, but in the same time, what he wants to do is a noble cause, in a way, like something that could, in his view, would benefit both humanity and magic. Again, kind of like, adding to what you just said before.
I'll tell you a template for a good fantasy villain, or I wouldn't necessarily call him a villain in this show. I'd call him more of a gray area, ambiguous. I'd call him a villain, but I'd also call him an anti-hero. Rumpelstiltskin, Mr. Gold.
Wait, you mean Rumpelstiltskin from Once Upon a Time?
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, he first started as a villain, but then later on he kind of evolved into, I would say, from like a villain to an anti-villain to an anti-hero, and then to a hero in the end.
I think the way they did his character, I think, is a good template for villains, I think. Because like you sort of like see his backstory, you see why he is how he is, and kind of explains it, and it kind of makes you. I mean, personally, he was my favorite character on that show. I especially loved it that one episode of the first season when Emma's looking for the wolf, and Rumpelstiltskin comes out of the garden in like the gardening apron. It's just so funny. I remember just losing it for like 10 minutes. We had to pause the show. Which is so funny. But like you kind of got to see his motivations, and you kind of like really sympathized with him as it went on, and as you kind of understood where he was coming from. And I think that's kind of what you want to do with fantasy villains in general, is you want to sympathize with them, and you kind of want to like, I mean, you want to see them as the villain or the antagonist, but I think you also kind of want to have a little bit of like, well, you know, I kind of get what they're. I kind of get what's up with them. Yeah, I think he would be my template for a fantasy villain.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, sometimes like the thing for me is sometimes he doesn't hurt if you're gonna have a villain that is actually like pure evil. Like you can show him his backstory, how he became a villain and everything, but like for me personally, like if you kind of like if you with whichever story you do, if you can kind of like balance like characters or in this case villains, like someone who you can kind of like feel for him with another villain that is kind of like pure evil. I think like it's a win-win situation, because I always thought like sure you can create characters that you can kind of like connect with them, you can feel sorry for them, you can feel pity for them, you can understand where they're coming from and all that. Yes, you can, but also for me personally, you can also make villains that are just simply pure evil. Like you can add something to them, but at the same time, like you're just simply showing, yep, they're evil. Like there's no doubt about that. There's nothing redeemable about them and everything. Because that's one of the things, especially when it comes to fantasy or stories in general. One of the things I'm kind of growing tired of is like when you have stories where the villain is redeemed at the end, and then kind of grows, and then it kind of grows really tired with me. I'm kind of growing really tired with this one, because like, yeah, sure, sometimes you can do that, but like most of the time, I think like just make a good good versus evil story, like for example, like again, the story I'm writing. Yes, he became more understandable. The villain I'm talking about in my story. Yes, throughout the centuries, he did become more understandable. He did become more compassionate. He did become more open-minded, more wiser. Again, I'm talking about the story I'm writing. But he's still at the end. He's still a villain. He's still evil. Like like the quest he wants to complete, he can only do it through genocide. And again. Yes, you can feel sorry for him. Yes, you can understand him. Yes, you can connect with him. But at the very end, he's still evil, and he still wants to do the things in a bad way. I'm just kind of adding to what you said before. I mean, do you agree?
Yeah.
But basically, now the story I'm writing. Basically, the character, my villain, what he wants to do is to combine humanity and magic. He wants that both humans and magical world can coexist. Basically,
so the reverse of Voldemort, then.
Yeah, it's a more reversible. Like he wants humanity and magic to coexist because in his view of this dark wizard I'm talking about, he was present through humanity's actions from the beginning. Like he saw all types of betrayals, assassinations, pain and misery, different wars and everything, everything that humanity basically did to themselves, or more precisely what we did to ourselves. But so he came to a conclusion because all this time, because when I was writing the story, I was like, I bet people will think like, wait, what the fuck was he doing the whole time? What the fuck was he doing? And I was like, he didn't get involved. He was just simply looking from the shadows, like what was happening. But now, like he realized that the only possible solution for this world to survive is that if you combine magic and humanity together. Like that's the only way this could happen. But of course, he knows that the only way to do that is that if you get rid of kind of putting it in a poetic way, get rid of all the ashes that basically represents not just simply humanity today, but also the past, basically. to kind of like start with a clean slate. And of course, now I'm still kind of like writing, but basically the only way to do that is massive genocide. And that's kind of basically where the heroes enter to try to stop him and everything. But even though what he wants to do is noble and reasonable, it's still it would have been done in a bad way. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I like that idea. That's an interesting idea. I kind of like how how his motivations are kind of the reverse of Voldemort.
Yeah, but basically, in this story, again, I'm kind of using an element that it's very usable today. But for example, like the first time when this dark wizard is introduced, historically, you seem like this like very very stereotypical like evil wizard looking guy.
Mm-hmm.
But then like throughout the ages, he was present like during all this time with humanity and everything, but like throughout the story, you only see him as like wearing an iron mask. By the way, the Iron Mask has nothing to do with the Three Musketeer storyline with Victor Hugo. It has nothing to do with that. But basically, he's wearing this kind of like iron mask, and it's like has this kind of like really big black hood. Basically, like you never see his face. Basically, you never see his face. You only know that, oh my God, he's back. He's present, he somehow survived the war. He's still here. We have to find a way to win. But you never see his true face. Even though you think he looks the same as he did in the past, during the great first magical war. But then the twist is that this wizard was basically among the heroes the whole time. And basically the main revelation is basically when he tried to basically save himself. He created a potion to kind of like cheat death in a way, but there was a side effect, and the side effect is he became young. And basically throughout the story, this young version of this dark wizard, he's with the main heroes the whole time, until it's revealed that he was actually the Dark Wizard. Again, very, very traditional trope when it comes to story-wise, but like again, I'm trying to kind of like give you like a short summary because the story goes much more deeper than that.
Yeah,
so
I like
basic. Thank you. I try my best. But basically, like I said, the side effect of the potion made him younger. Basically, he gave him eternal youth, basically. And there are also some like moments where you think like wait, how the fuck is this dark wizard? He was like with them the whole time, and like because there are some moments in the story where like you see the dark wizard present, and the same time the real dark wizard is at the same scene at the same time. And basically the explanation is that through magic he kind of like he created like a copy of himself to kind of like make everyone think that that they're totally like two different person. And also there are even like some storylines, again I'm not going to go into details, but there are also some storylines where the main characters face some like supernatural threats.
Mm-hmm.
And that was basically the dark wizard in disguise.
I like that.
Yeah. I would say this. There are also some like supernatural like exorcist stuff like storylines in my world that I created. I literally create even a storyline that I took inspiration from The Nun. I'm not kidding you. Again, nothing to do with like priests or anything, but like the story is a little bit similar, but like with few touches I give. Now, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, like one of the now I don't know if you're familiar with this, but like one of the things I kind of I think like they're very rarely doing it today, but but what they usually did this in the past is that how they combine fantasy myths into like fantasy, like actual like myths and legends, and they use them in fantasy. I mean, like for example, the sword and the stone thing, or like the adventures of King Arthur, or like if you're talking like the Holy Grail, for example, or like sometimes like basically overall mythology around gods and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean sometimes when it comes to like using those types of like myths into like fantasy, it's like I always kind of call it like a very nice touch. I mean, like the
Would
go ahead.
would Percy Jackson count?
Well, in a way, I mean, it's mostly based on like the Greek gods and everything, but it's very fantasy centric. I will give it that. Yeah, I mean, I even wanted to mention another fantasy story. I don't know if you ever watched the show, but it came this year, Twilight of the Gods by Zack Snyder.
Mm-mm.
That is also like pure on fantasy, and he used like a lot of like Norse mythology in it. And I love that. I love that. How they use that in in fantasy, or even like the overall. If we're gonna make it simpler, even the overall legends of like for example trolls. Like I mean, like for example, if you look at like in like countries like the Netherlands or Norway, like there are all sorts of like trolls myths basically, and they all and they use them in fantasy. I mean, I don't know if how much you're familiar with myths and legends.
Um, Myths and legends. Yeah, I mean, myths. I know, like with Egyptian mythology,
Yeah.
Greek mythology, the Egyptian mythology, Greek mythology, Norse mythology. Um, yeah,
Now, yeah, I mean, yeah, but again, because again, I always felt like every all kinds of like additions to fantasy for me personally are most welcome. And again, one of my favorite tropes about like fantasy was always like using myths and legends into like the overall story and everything. Even like like from like the gods to the Loch Ness monster to simple trolls, like the all sorts of stuff. I really, really, really appreciate it. Now, Mike, I have a question for you.
okay.
Which of the franchises that you and I know now, which one would you judge as like that went? Which of the franchises would you say it went like full on fantasy, full on, like with no barriers whatsoever? I think we might have the same answer, but like we will try.
I'd say definitely Harry Potter went full fantasy.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm
Um,
going. Okay, okay. Do
yeah.
you have something more to add?
Yeah, I'd say definitely Harry Potter went full fantasy.
Ooh. Then we came to a disagreement because I think full on fantasy. I think the Lord of the Rings went there
Okay, yeah, I didn't think about the Lord of the Rings. So I'm
because
so I'm gonna give a full confession. I I've never actually seen the Lord of the Rings.
you're kidding me.
No.
Oh, okay. Homework: watch all the Hobbit movies, Lord of the Rings movies, and for addition, the first two seasons of the Rings of Power. By the way, Lord of the Rings movies and Hobbit, watch the extended editions. Not like the theatrical version, but like the extended edition. Oh, and by the way, full warning: Return of the King, 4 hours long. Just to let you know, the extended edition, 4 hours long. Oh my god! Like, I mean, seriously? Sheesh. Where have you been? Like hiding in a cave or something? Oh my god! Like you right now you are literally like a fucking cave troll. Literally. Oh my god. But anyway, Okay, I think that for me personally, I think that Lord of the Rings. When you watch the movies, I think you understand what I mean. Full on fantasy. Now, don't get me wrong. Harry Potter movies they did went full on fantasy, but also they still kept that modern the modernization. Let's put it that way. They also keep that modern level in the stories. Like like for example, like they kind of like modernize the world of magic in a way. Let's put it that way. Because for me personally, when I say full on fantasy, I always talk about like like actual like castles, kings and queens and wizards and dragons and wars, all types of like orcs, trolls, elves, dwarves, goblins, and so on and so forth. Like that's like basically for me full on fantasy. When you do a world and a story that has no boundaries, basically. So for me, I personally I will go with like Lord of the Rings definitely. Now I want to ask you this: one of the other franchises I wanted to mention. Did you ever watch Willow?
Willow. No.
You're serious?
Yeah.
You never watched the movie and the show? Okay, then one more homework for you. The Willow with Warwick Davis.
Yeah, no, I haven't watched that.
Okay, homework: Lord of the Rings movies, Hobbit, and of course the Willow movie and the TV show. That's the two homeworks. That's the two types of homeworks you have to do. You have to do.
How come I've never heard? Huh?
It's done by Lucasfilm. The same ones who did Indiana Jones and Star Wars.
Huh. I've never. Huh. Wow. I've never heard
okay.
it.
Yeah, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's okay. Okay, fair enough. Then I'm not gonna go into details like about Willow and everything. Like I want you to discover those two things for yourself. But I will say this. Now, like the what the like what was the other thing? Oh shit! Now my mind stopped. I was trying to ask one more question, but like literally my mind literally stopped.
Mhm.
My mind blocked.
I know what your question was. Yes, I do like Mephisto.
You wish you were that lucky, but no, that wasn't my question.
Damn it.
That's life for you. No. But my question was, oh my god, how much did you grow up with? Oh yeah, kind of like an outside question, but like, how much did you grow up with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe?
I'm trying to think. I remember
the Power of Grayskull.
I remember the one on Cartoon Network years ago.
Okay, so you're talking about the early 2000s. Okay, I
Yeah.
know which version you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be fair. Okay, it does have some sci-fi elements, but would you consider this show being also fantasy?
I'd call it fantasy.
I mean, I know they have some like technology type of like elements to it as well, but I will also definitely consider like 95% of it fantasy.
Yeah, I'd call it fantasy.
Yeah.
I would definitely call it fantasy.
Yeah, that's one of the questions I wanted to ask. Like if you would consider that fantasy as well or not.
Yeah, I'd call it fantasy.
Yeah, because a lot of people have like I've seen like making discussions like would you consider like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe like fantasy or sci-fi? Because it does have like both elements at the same time.
And
But I will go as far as say like I will consider it more fantasy than sci-fi.
I'd call it more fantasy than
sci-fi. Yeah,
I think there are sci-fi elements to it, but I would definitely say it trends more fantasy than sci-fi. I think.
Mm,
Yeah, I would say definitely trends more fantasy than sci-fi.
yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that one as well. Yeah. Mm,
I completely forgot about that one. Yeah, I completely forgot about that one.
mm. I want to ask you this now. There are a few other like fantasy projects. Like, have you ever, for example, have you ever watched the movie Legend
Legend, I haven't.
with Tom Cruise?
I haven't.
Mm. It's a fantasy movie that, for me personally, it's very underrated, and one of the most I would say one of the most forgotten gems of fantasy, because again, that's another project that really went into fantasy like 100%, and a movie that, first and foremost, a movie that was directed by Ridley Scott. By the way, it was directed by Ridley Scott, and it's a movie where literally the main villain is the devil.
Mephisto?
Well, I would say Mephisto's uncle.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and do you want to know who played him?
Who?
Tim Curry. Okay, write Legend and right beside it Darkness, and you'll see what you're gonna get.
Wait, oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, geez.
Yes. That my friend is a stuff of nightmares.
Jeez.
And he was played by the magnificent Tim Curry. Can you imagine having those fucking horns all the time on set? I mean, let's agree, those are big ass horns.
Yes.
I mean, Angelina Jolie had problem with her Maleficent horns when she was on set. Can you imagine Tim Curry with those fucking big ass fucking horns? Mike, oh my god. But I will say this: Tim Curry, for me personally, gave a magnificent performance. Which, I mean, the character is literally called Darkness or Lord of Darkness, which we can both agree he basically played the devil in a way, and again, it's again, when you look at the character, you could kind of say, like, you could, some people are like, they couldn't see Tim Curry in it, but for me personally, like, after seeing Tim Curry so much, like, I can definitely see him under that makeup. Like, for example, from the laugh, the way how he talks, the movement of his mouth, like, you can see is Tim Curry. But actually, what is the proof? What is the magnum opus proof of how do you know it's Tim Curry? He's the only one of all the British actors, at least what I've seen, that says the word boy, that says boy. Literally, everyone will say boy or boy. He says boy. Every time. If you want to know that was Tim Curry, just hear him say boy, and you'll know immediately that's him. Immediately. I don't know why. Like, does he say it on purpose, or does he actually say the word boy, like boy? Because seriously, like, speaking of fantasy, like, there's a TV show called Peter Pan and the Pirates. It's kind of like a Fox production of, like, Peter Pan and Wendy, and basically Tim Curry voices Captain Hook. And every time when he's like talking about the Lost Boys or Peter Pan, every time he says boy or boys, like, every time, and I'm like, is he doing that on purpose, or just to make it more like menacing? So I always say to everyone, if you want to know Tim Curry, if that performance is Tim Curry, just wait for him to say boy, and then you'll know. But I think like you will. But I think like you would like this movie, Legend. I think you will. I mean, when I watched it one time, with one of my friends. For him personally, he didn't like it because he felt like the story went very slow.
Hmm.
But for me personally, I just simply, I mean, okay, is the movie perfect? No, it's not. But like, I really enjoyed the ride. And again, the world building, the makeup, oof, especially the makeup. And honestly, if I ever had a discussion with Ridley Scott, I would literally tell him that one of my favorite movies that he did is definitely Legend.
Legend. I'm gonna have to watch that.
I
I
mean,
kind of want to see. I kind of want to see it now.
I mean, first of all, that's Tom Cruise in his like earliest, like early days, and also it has Tim Curry playing the devil. So, I mean, what more can you want? Oh my god. Mm. No, I mean, I'm telling you, there are all sorts of like fantasy projects that exist. That are so great to watch.
Well, how have we not talked about Wizards of Waverly Place yet?
Wait, what?
Wizards of Waverly Place.
Oh my god. The one you're talking about, the one with Selena Gomez,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a show I'm not taking seriously, and it's basically a fantasy sitcom. And look. If we talk about this show, then basically it's like we're talking about Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about the cartoon Sabrina. I'm talking about like the actual sitcom.
Oh, I forgot about that one. I completely forgot about that one.
When it comes to Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the only thing I liked was Salem the cat.
Cat.
Yeah, that's the only thing I liked. Salem the cat. Although the cartoon was actually way more enjoyable.
Another fantasy show too, which you probably don't like this one either. Pair of Kings.
Wait. Let me just think. Sometimes like Pair of Kings. No. Fuck no. Fuck off. No. Goddamn no. No. That show is so stupid. like when I see this show, when I saw the show a couple of times, I was like, man, I feel so sorry for those kids. I feel so sorry for them. I mean, I know they had to do their job and everything, but like, really, I mean, like, I don't know. I was
what's a new fantasy show on Nick now? Max
What?
in the Midnights.
Wait, let me check. Max and
The Midnights.
Oh yeah. Wait. Oh yeah. I remember. Yeah, isn't that like based on a children's novel or something?
Yeah. Okay, so that's based on a book. Okay.
Yeah, I know it was. I know it was based on a book or something because the thing is, wait, how old is the book? Let me just check something. Where is it? Okay, there it is. Okay, it's a set of books. Oh, okay. So it's not actually that old. It looks like because the books were released in 2021. So actually, it's not that old.
Oh, it was. Oh, it was. It was. What is it? It was. Isn't it by the same author as Big Nate?
Oh, I don't know. That part I don't know. Max. It says it's by Lincoln Piercy.
Okay, that's the same author as Big Nate.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I will say this: I saw the trailer for the TV show Max in the Midnights. I saw the trailer. It, in a crazy way, it kind of reminds me of Captain Underpants. The style of the characters, the humor and everything, it kind of reminds me of that.
Captain Underpants.
I'm not kidding you. Like, I mean, I used to read Captain Underpants when I was like literally in preschool. I mean,
funny.
yeah, I mean, first and foremost, when DreamWorks announced they were trying to do Captain Underpants, the first epic movie, as they called it. First, like, none of my friends actually heard, like, ever fucking heard of, like, who the fuck is this Captain Underpants guy?
I have the Hypno ring.
You do?
Yeah, I got it with. We used to have in grade school. We used to have like these book fairs in the library, and they had like a book. I think it was like a Captain Underpants. Well, it had to be Captain Underpants book. They came with
definitely
a Hypno ring.
Mm-hmm.
So I got it. I still have the ring somewhere.
Oh, cool.
I mean, know where it is, but I still have it somewhere.
Oh my god! Like, unfortunately I never had the ring. I only had the books of Captain Underpants, and I mean, I remember, like, reading it when I was little, and like, in a very bizarre, bonkers way, I was kind of like, intrigued by it. Even it was like very stupid and bonkers and everything, but like literally of all my friends from my generation, when, like, for example, I would talk about like the Captain Underpants movie, almost everyone will be like, "Who?" Like when the announcement of the movie came out, I was like, "Oh, Captain Underpants!" I was like, "Oh yeah, the guy in the tight whiteies." The guy in like very 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 extended whiteies. Yeah. My god.
I'm sorry for laughing, but you said really close together. You said about my generation, and then you said the Who. You said Who.
Yeah.
You're like I did start singing.
Okay. I didn't mean that kind of Who. Okay.
But no, I get your point about Captain Underpants. I kind of agree. I remember I never actually read it. I probably should, but I remember whenever I first heard of it, like it's the kind of thing where it sounds really stupid, but because it sounds so stupid, it kind of makes you want to say, I kind of want to look and see what it's about.
Look, let me kind of explain to you. Basically, every single book / comic book, actually, it's basically a brand new adventure of Captain Underpants. In a superhero stopping crime kind of way, like. But the thing is, and I'm fucking not kidding you, my very first book I wrote, I wish. My very first book of Captain Underpants I read was literally the one where Professor Poopy Pants was introduced.
It's what Captain Underpants is one of those things you got to wonder, like the person who wrote that, you got to wonder how on earth they stumbled on that idea for Captain Underpants.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, look,
I have to think there had to be some weed involved in that.
Well, look, first and foremost, like, what was his name? Daw Pilkey, I think, what was the name of the writer. I'm not quite sure, but like the first ever book, I think, like, came out like in the very late 90s. I think like maybe 98, 97. I think the first ever book, So I don't know. Like either he was like, hey, instead of doing a complicated superhero story, how about I make him simple? How about if I make a story about a naked guy in his underwear and then in a cape, basically, that he took from a fucking window, and transform into like tra-la-la Captain Underpants, and basically that's it, or maybe like he was high. Who knows? I don't know. They're all like. The thing is, the imagination works in very mysterious ways. That's for sure.
That makes me think of a question though. Captain Underpants, you see all these Funko Pops.
Oh yeah.
You never see. I haven't seen any Captain Underpants Funko Pops.
Well, either it's popularity or either people were not interested, which I think is kind of like both the same thing.
I don't know. I think Captain Underpants. I don't know what you think. I think there's still a market for that. I think that they could bring him back and do it again, do a movie. I don't know, because it kind of fits the bill of the kind of movie that I think I'd see and other people would see. It's a movie that like it would be so like I'm not gonna say stupid, but it'd be so like stupidly funny that
Yeah.
I think it would attract people. Like I said, I mean the other thing about it is like just like the title, Captain Underpants. I mean, like you see that title, you kind of walk to the movie theater or you see it on TV, you see Captain Underpants, the title, and you're like, I don't even know what that movie's about. I kind of want to see it because the title alone kind of just draws you in.
Yeah, it does. It does. Like Captain Underpants is one of those like moments, kind of like one of those projects that at first like you think like it's not something I would watch, but then when you hear the title, you're like, I'm kind of curious, to see what actually is, like I mean, for example, in 2025, we're gonna see Dogman, and
Yeah,
Dogman.
I got that as a free comic book a couple years last year on free comic book.
Dogman actually is a spin-off of Captain Underpants, and it was first, I think, like the very first time they came out. I think it was like in 2016, I think.
Dogman. See that is a movie I might have to try to see because
and again, it's a very stupid origin. It's a very stupid story. Like, for example, there was an accident, and basically the only way the cop could survive is that if they basically put the dog, his dog, and the cop together, and that's how he became Dogman.
See, the thing I hate, the thing that they do with those kind of movies, though, I found and I hate, is they try to smart them up. And whatever they do, that like that kind of movie, Captain Underpants, they don't need to smart them up. Just keep everything the same, keep the origins the same, keep them kind of like dumb funny, and they will work. Whenever you try to smart a movie up, it does. To me, you lose the humor.
Well, the one thing for certain, when it comes to Dogman, which is one of the upcoming DreamWorks and DreamWorks movies, when it comes to Dogman, it definitely feels like they're following the Captain Underpants formula. It like basically they're gonna make it like very simple, bonkers, and like hey, the kid's gonna love it.
Now I'll tell you, and this movie kind of fits into what we were talking about earlier, fantasy. I read online. What movie I heard was canceled and now it's back in production? And it's actually being written, I think, by somebody from Saturday Night Live. But I don't know how I feel about that, but Rugrats. But it's a live action movie.
I don't know.
I guess they're gonna. The only thing I can figure out is they're probably gonna have to CGI the babies.
Oh no, they're not gonna do that.
And I don't know how in the hell that's going to work.
Look, I've heard about the Rugrats live action project, which I think is one of the most dumbest thing they could ever do. Rugrats is a project that can only remain as animation. There's no fucking way you can do this in live action, because the only thing they could do, and I think they will, is that if you do like live action kids, or should I say live action babies.
Well, the other thing to do. What would make more sense, and I'd actually be more in favor of that if they adapted All Grown Up.
If they made a Rugrats movie where they're all grown up, which I think for them would be much more easier, then it's a different story.
Well, even adapt the All Grown Up TV show where they're teenagers.
That could also work. Yeah.
I mean, because that would be a lot better. I mean, because if they're gonna do CGI babies, that CGI talking babies.
No. CGI babies. That will be that will sound very disturbing.
I don't know. That would kind of border fantasy a little bit, though.
I mean, look, if they're gonna like, can you try to imagine Rugrats being done CGI? It will literally be just like that fucking baby in Mask 2.
Oh, if they do the baby CGI, that movie's gonna tank. There's no
I
way
mean,
There's no
literally,
way that movie works.
literally, the Rugrats are gonna feel like that baby in Mask 2 without the mother moment.
Unless they do, the only thing I can figure out they might do, and I don't know, if they might do something in the vein of the SpongeBob movies, where they had the characters come out of the animated universe and go into the real world, and they sort of did them, like in that kind of animation.
Yeah, but it would still feel weird.
But I don't know. It just, I don't know.
I don't know. Like the only thing, look, the only thing, and we both agree on that. The only thing they can do this if they do the Rugrats adults or teenagers.
Yeah.
Because as babies, the only way they can do that is if they make the babies like live action, like actual babies, and and then they made them somehow talk or something, because like for example, they did with that old movie. I think it was from the 90s. I don't know if you ever watched it. It was like an action comedy movie where basically you have babies who are like very highly intelligent. Basically,
Oh, I have a vague memory of that.
Yeah. So basically if they do a Rugrats live action, then they should do something like similar to that movie. Basically,
I'd rather see a Phineas and Ferb live action than Rugrats.
No, Phineas and Ferb could work in live action.
That you could do live action. I mean, there are a lot of shows that I think lend themselves to live action. I think Ed, Edd and Eddy, that'd be easy to do live action. You could easily pull that off live action. But Rugrats, I think they were smarter when they canceled the movie. I think they should have just kept. I think they should have just kept that one in the grave. Because that one, because I'm telling you right now, if they CGI the babies, and even if they don't, I can't see that working in live action in any way now.
If they CGI the babies, I can assure you it's gonna look weird.
Now, if they did like say a Wild Thornberrys live action, I wouldn't be opposed to that either. I think that could work live action. I mean, almost every Nickelodeon show, I think, except Rugrats, could potentially work live action.
I just noticed we're almost like 2 hours on, and actually it took us like almost 2 hours to kind of go off the grid.
Yeah, we made it longer than I thought we would.
Yeah, I really did. And again, we went through a lot of like the subtopics that I kind of showed you like a few days ago. We actually kind of went through them and everything. And again, even though some of the franchises we couldn't talk about it because you didn't watch them, so it kind of also made it a little more easier, as well. But overall, like again, I'm literally proud of ourselves. Like it took us like almost like 2 hours to kind of go off the grid.
Yeah, that's longer than I expected.
That's a record.
Yeah, I thought we'd go off a lot quicker than that.
No, but in this case, we didn't.
Yeah,
we actually didn't, and that's kind of like a good thing. Oh my god. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to ask. I'm gonna ask. Going back to the fantasy subject again. That's gonna sound a little bit like complicated, but like, what would be your perfect fantasy movie? Like in your head, in your mind. Now the main point of this question is to use your imagination. How would you do? What would be your like perfect fantasy movie?
That's a good question. My perfect fantasy movie. I would say, like we talked about earlier, it has to kind of. I don't know if I do it as a period piece necessarily. I might do it like in the current day and age, but I would set it. Oh, we have a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to wait for you to.
FRC.
Yeah, fantasies are coming true. Seeing you guys this evening looking so well, absolutely loving the stream. To be fair, I wanted to wait for you, TK, to finish your answer, but since you noticed and everything, I was like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna show the comment.
Hey, FRC, if you're still watching, which one of us looks better?
Ah.
Okay, so my perfect fantasy thing would be So I don't know if I do a period piece. I might do it like set in this day and age, but like in like the fantasy kind of realm.
Okay.
I would say, I don't know. I mean, in terms of a hero, I don't know. I feel like a knight would be too cliche, but I might do a knight. Villain wise, I'd probably I'm trying to think. I'd probably go with somebody like Galbertrax.
Wow.
Now that made me think of a question for you. The story you were telling me earlier.
Yeah.
So would it be told from the point of view of the rogue wizard guy?
Oh, you mean the main villain? No.
Yeah.
No. Some of it's a little bit complicated because the overall main point of my story is to kind of like combine the present time and humanity and the magical world. To kind of like because the story is not just simply about like the main character and like the team that he basically recruits like throughout the story. It's basically it evolves a lot of things. Like it evolves like the real world. It involves also the magical world, and also like some topics that also kind of are represented in the real world as well. So and also like there's all sorts of like stories and arcs which like they're told from a different character's perspective. So it's a little bit complicated, but like there's a lot of elements in it. But basically, so the human and magical world, I will only say this: the human and magical world thing, it's kind of like Harry Potter, but it's more deeper than that. It's more, I wouldn't say at some points it's also a little bit more darker and twisted.
Now here's something. I didn't hear you say this as an element of your story, so I might take it for mine. Maybe there's something in the human world or the fantasy world that one or the other needs to survive. So they're kind of like a symbiotic thing. So like if one is tampered with, they'll both kind of fall apart.
Well, the thing is that actually from my story, you're actually not that far, because in my story, the magical world is somehow dying in a way, because not because like they need the other to survive. No, it's because again, it's also an element that is actually, unfortunately, it's part of our humanity as well, is that as you grow older, you kind of stop believing in those things.
Okay.
And also one of the main parts is not just simply, again, it's not just simply about personal beliefs. It's also about like as the world progresses, this kind of belief itself kind of becomes more and more extinct. So again, it's not something in my story. It's not just simply about a personal belief, but it's also like a global thing. Like as we progress with like again, science, logic, the technology itself, the type of beliefs, the type of like lives that humanity lives today, and everything, the needs that we have, and all that, it moves away from magic itself, basically. So one of the main topics is definitely like in my story that the magical world is dying, but again, it is much more deeper and a little bit complicated than for example, Harry Potter, because like when you look at Harry Potter, for example, both worlds in a way coexist. None of them are dying, but in my version, that world is dying because in my version, there are consequences in which the both worlds can live without the other, but in the same time they realize that they need to be combined because like there are some elements in my story that kind of makes them connected in a way. Again, it's complicated, but like I'm trying to kind of give you like a short summary.
Now, does your story have a character like, and this character I think is, to me, one of the best fantasy characters ever, in the Harry Potter franchise, Snape.
Wait, you mean is there a character like Snape?
Yeah. Who kind of like keeps you guessing, sort of.
Yes and no. Like there is one who kind of plays both sides, but like not the Snape way.
I thought Snape was really. I mean,
no, Snape is one of the most well-written characters in fantasy. Period.
I mean, one thing I'll say is, I mean, I think everybody kind of. I mean, I know reading the series through, I kind of had an inkling that he was going to be on the right side in the long run. But I didn't know exactly how. But he was one of the best, I think, written characters, because she kept him as ambiguous as she could, I think. And like I said, I mean, I think that a lot of people, when they were reading it, kind of got the idea that he was going to wind up being on the right side and he was going to wind up being one of the good guys. They just didn't know exactly like how we were going to get to that point.
Yeah.
And I think that the way she threaded everything with that was really well done. I mean, that's, for me, like you asked about a villain earlier. For me, that's probably how I'd write at least one character in a fantasy story, is like Snape, to kind of be ambiguous and keep you guessing. I'd also write a character like sort of Murtaugh in Aragon. I'd also want a character like that in the book, who's kind of like an anti-hero, who's kind of like not necessarily a bad guy, but not necessarily a good guy. I don't know. I kind of like characters like that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
In Aragon movie, I know there was a character played by Jeremy Irons.
Yeah.
Is that a character from the books or was just original from the movie?
Yeah, he was in the books. Broom. So he was. I'm trying to remember that he was, I think, Aragon's dad. He was. I think that's what was revealed in the first book, that he was Aragon's dad. And then Murtaugh. I think this was also revealed in the first book. It might have been the second one, but Murtaugh is actually Aragon's half brother.
One more thing. The character played by John Malkovich.
Yes.
Is it also a character from the book?
Yeah, that's Galbertrax.
Is he kind of like the main villain or just?
Yeah, he's the main villain. And he is, honestly, I think John Malkovich. I haven't seen the movie. I started it the other day, but I haven't seen it the whole way through. But John Malkovich, the way Galbertrax is described in the books, I think John Malkovich doesn't. To me, that casting is off. I think it needs to be somebody more physically imposing.
Who would you choose as this what was the name? Galbatorix. Who would you choose?
That's a good question. I think I'd choose somebody younger, like
how old is the character in the books?
Who was the guy who played Deathstroke and at the end?
Joe Manganiello.
Yeah, I might choose somebody like him.
So,
He
what age is the character in the
um
books?
in the books, I forget what the age was. I always kind of pictured him like not like old, but kind of like 50s, 60s.
Well, I mean, John Malkovich is like in his 40s. Sorry, John Manganiello is in his 40s. So,
I mean, I kind of always pictured him more on the younger side. I don't know, but
so basically, the way how, if I understood correctly, so basically, you're saying that this king, this Galbatorix, so you're basically saying that he needs to be someone who is like imposing mentally and physically.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
he would. And the other thing too is, I mean, he really has to, because I mean he's the main villain of the whole. I mean of the whole series, so it really has to be somebody who can carry that role. Um, and I mean John Malkovich. I mean, no disrespect to him because he's a great actor, but I just don't think he was. And again, I need to watch the movie the whole way through, but I just don't think he was the right choice. Um,
You
and
know
then
which actors I could see him as this king guy?
hmm?
Sorry if I'm interrupting you. I do apologize. I just remember. I was just trying to see the pictures of like this Galbatorix character, and there's like an old black and white drawing. And you know actually which actors I can see him play. I want to ask you your opinion. Okay, so my first choice would have been Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, I could see that.
Okay, my second choice. Oh my god, I'll butcher his name. Okay, let me put it this way. My second choice is the guy who played the lizard in the Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, yes. Hey, that made me think. How do you say the guy who played Morato's name?
Morado. Hmm. Wait, remind me again.
Oh, it wasn't Morato?
Wait, you mean you're talking about Baron Mordo?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oof. Just give me a second. Uh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. Forget it. Forget it. I'm gonna butcher his name. Forget it. I'm gonna butcher the guy's name.
I was trying to say his name the other day. I have to say it for my blog this week.
Okay,
I'm just gonna take a stab at it. I'm just gonna be like, yeah, I don't know how to say his name at all. His name is
I'm gonna go on a limb here. Okay, I'm gonna try. Chivatel a Jovor.
that's probably as good as that's probably as good as you're gonna get.
Yeah, although I personally think the actor will strangle me to death if I said that in front of him.
Well, at least you're not calling Adina Menzel Adel Gazim.
Oh God, that would be awkward.
Oh, poor John Travolta.
Yeah. So could you see? So again, so the two actors I've kind of got an idea. Uh, could you see them as this King Galbatorix?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Who else I could see? I just thought about just now. I could also see maybe Liam Neeson.
Yeah, but he's 70.
Well, that's true.
Well, no, technically he's 72, so he's a little bit too old to play him.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and the books, I mean, from the drawings I've seen from this Galbatorix character, because there is like a Wikipedia of Aragon. Let me check. Just let me open the picture. Okay, so he definitely looks like a guy who's like in his mid 40s to mid 50s. I mean, I'm looking at the drawing of the character. Maybe 60, but I can see him as someone who's like in his mid 40s to mid 50s.
I really hope they do a TV show of Aragon because I think I really hope, circling back with that, I really hope they do that because I think there's a lot there that they can do. I
Who
think that
knows?
it's a really good story. It has a lot in it, and like I said, and like we said earlier, the best way to do it is a TV show, because I think that at least the first two books, although the other ones are pretty heavy too, is there's a lot of stuff in the books, and
Yeah.
if they were going to fit that into a 2 hour movie, 3 hour movie, they'd have to cut a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that they really can't afford to cut. Um, and I think they need like a 10 episode season. I mean, because there I think are 4 books in the Inherited cycle. So if they did like a season, like 10 episodes each or 5 episodes each, even.
Yeah.
I mean, they could easily do that. And like I said, I mean, it has dragons, it has wizards. I mean, it has like all the fantasy elements. So I mean,
Hmm.
if you're somebody who's big into fantasy, I think it's a show that people would easily watch.
I do. I do agree. I definitely do agree on that. But and again, the same thing goes with me with Chronicles of Narnia, because I read. I mean, I have read the books a long time ago, and all of them. Uh, and I will tell you, like the story itself of like just like Aragon, it should be done as a TV show,
The
because
issue,
there's so because the Chronicles of Narnia, like because like sure, I mean the movies did kind of explore a lot, but trust me, like after, especially after the last one they did, uh, like things. I was let me put, if I have to put it politely, things get juicier after the last movie they did. They get way more and more juicier. Let's put it
the
that way.
only issue I have is with the books where they did the at least one or two of the books where they didn't really focus on the Pevensey children.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know.
true.
Those kind of lost my interest a little bit.
I mean, to be fair, okay, to be fair, the books themselves, sometimes they concentrate less on the kids, and sometimes more.
I also
So,
felt that it's kind of a little dark what Narnia winds up being.
oh, trust me, the books are some like the books as we go further into the final battle. Trust me, the book they get darker and darker.
I don't know, that kind of. I mean, C.S. Lewis. I mean, of course, he was religious, so I mean, it kind of makes sense what Narnia wound up being.
I mean, the main villain
But
of I mean, the main villain of Chronicles of Narnia is literally like his own version of the devil,
yeah,
literally. And the lion, we can both. I mean, I think you will agree with me. The lion is basically God,
yeah,
because like I will never forget the line that Liam Neeson as the lion said. Like back in your world, I have a different name. I go with another name, and literally everyone made speculations, because like I think like in the books was never revealed that he was actually God, but everyone made speculation that in the human world he's God, and like so and the main villain of Chronicles of Narnia, what was the creature's name? Just give me a second. Man, villain. Oh my god. Shit. Um. I mean, I know that. I know that he. I know that the witch is kind of like one of the main villains.
the witch also winds up being the ancient one.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great.
but the thing is, there is another villain. There's another villain in Chronicles of Narnia that is kind of like the main villain overall. Uh, where is he? There it is. Tash. That's the name. Tash. He's basically kind of like a demon god type of like character.
Okay.
And who is literally in. I mean, the White Witch, you can say she's kind of like the main villain, and Tash is kind of like the overarching villain. Kind of like, the story basically leads to him and everything, But Tash is basically like Chronicles of Narnia's version of the devil, basically, you know. And so going back to the thing I was talking, we can both agree that the lion is kind of like God. Yeah. So, I mean, can you imagine God having a Liam Neeson voice? Oh my God. But I will say this: if they ever decide to make Chronicles of Narnia TV show, even though I know Greta, I forgot her name. She did Barbie.
Oh, Greta Gerwig.
Greta Gerwig, yeah. Although I know that she's going to do the movies, but it's going to be heartbreaking to hear the voice of Lion being someone else. Because for me personally, Liam Neeson as the Lion was perfect.
Yeah, well, he that was good casting for him.
Yeah, and even the White Witch, even she was cast perfectly.
But see, I think the Chronicles of Narnia will work better as a TV show.
No, yeah. I do agree. It works better as a TV show.
Because you look at a series of unfortunate events. That movie I thought was good. I mean, Jim Carrey was good as Count Olaf. He was hilarious.
Yeah.
But I think that the TV show was able to follow the material a lot better. And it didn't feel
with it was the one with Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah.
I mean, he was also cool as Olaf, but for me, Jim Carrey was Olaf.
Oh yeah, he was hilarious as Olaf. I loved him as Olaf.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, but by the way, spoiler alert: in the end, Count Olaf actually dies. In the end. Oh my God! Because I remember in the books, at one point he was supposed to be kind of like the villain, and then later on he kind of turned good in a way.
That's a book series that I think tried to get a little too clever for its own good.
Look, I think the Unfortunate Events book series, I think it's one of those books that I think they were ahead of its time.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was good, but I feel like it had a little bit too many twists and turns, and I think the author was trying to be a little bit too clever and a little too original, and it kind of lost me a little towards the last book or two. The earlier books, with all the disguises and everything, and all the schemes, those are fun. Those are more like one-offs. Whenever it started get into all this mystery and stuff, I was always like, yeah, that kind of lost me a little bit.
Well, could you please help me one thing? Because again, I literally forgot a lot about that series. But what was the thing behind those golden binoculars?
Oh boy, it's been a while since I've read that.
Because I know, because I was this some kind of a secret society or something?
Yes.
That always confused me when I saw that, because again, I never read the books. I've watched the Jim Carrey movie. I did watch a little bit of Neil Patrick Harris's series. So what was the point about those binoculars?
I think it was I think I'm trying to remember myself. I think it was the secret society thing. I think it was the VFW or something. I think
were the main character's parents actually involved in that?
Yeah.
I mean, what were a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it was a good thing. And I remember, because Count Olaf, you're right. I remember he was the main villain for a lot of the series, and then in the last couple of books, you kind of saw some of his actions as more noble and more less greedy and more noble for what he was doing. Oh gosh, I'd have to go back and rewatch it. I'd have to go back and reread that. But I do remember the binoculars. I do have a vague memory of that.
Okay, I think I found it. It says UFD, Volunteer Fire Department. It says it's a secret
Okay.
and mysterious organization. Becomes increasingly more aware of and involved with after their first encounter with the villainous member Count Olaf. The real. Uh, okay, I have to read that for myself because like there's a lot. There's a lot, but basically, yeah, I think that was the name of this organization, Volunteer Fire Department.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, it was like I said, I like the earlier series, the earlier books when they were more like comedic and more like one-off stories and more like here's this scheme for Count Olaf, here's that scheme. But like
yeah.
as it got more like into the secret society and all that stuff, it kind of lost my attention a little bit. I mean, I liked it. It just kind of lost my attention a little bit.
You know,
Um,
actually, sorry, I just remembered because when we're talking about the unfortunate events, uh, there's another like fantasy movie, well, series of movies. They also had like a cartoon series that I even today I still think it's like a little bit underrated. Have you ever watched the Never Ending Story?
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
You know the kid, the white flying dog, the
Oh,
book.
didn't? Wasn't there a remake of that with Adam Sandler?
No, no, I don't think so. No, no, the Never Ending Story. No, I don't remember seeing some with the Adam Sandler.
What am I thinking of? I need to look that up now because I remember.
Man, I like the man, like that dog in those old movies. Oh my god, it gave me the creeps.
Oh, I'm thinking of bedtime stories.
No, I said the Never Ending
Okay.
Story.
Yeah, I'm thinking of bedtime stories. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very like again, it's a very underrated movie series, in which one of them, by the way, in which one of them Jack Black appeared. No, no, I'm not kidding you. He was the main villain, and it was like way back in the early days of his acting career, like way back. You know, but he was still good. He was still good. You know, he was really good in that one. You know, and which kind of also reminds me, like, you know, like I really wish that Jack Black could do more villainous roles because I think he can do a good villain. You know, but never anyway. Never ending story. Basically, how much do you remember it?
Um, very vaguely.
So basically, I know that the main kingdom was like a thing called Fantasia. I think it was called. And I remember, like, you know, I remember like there's like a very Peter Pan ish type of like kid. Then there's the kid from the real world. And I remember the flying dog, all white. They kind of gave me the creeps the way how he looked like. You know, but either way, like that's a very underrated fantasy story. Very underrated. And also, I would say this Never Ending Story. I still think it's a story that is also ahead of its time.
Yeah, I
No,
could see that.
yeah, I think they made like 2 or 3 movies, and also like a cartoon TV show they made about it.
Oh, that made me think of another fantasy show. This is for little kids, like really little kids. It
Hmm.
was on PBS Kids, Dragon Tales.
Dragon Tales. Where that? Ooh, that rings a bell. Dragon Tales. Dragon Tales. Dragon. Oh my god! I remember this. I used to watch this on the Italian channel. There was like a brother and sister that went to this fantasy world where though you have those dragons. Yeah. I'm not kidding you. I used to watch it when I was a kid. I used to watch that when I was a kid, and I remember like vaguely, but I do remember some things. Oh my god, and the dragons. I remember all of them. Yeah, the 2-headed one, the pink one, the blue one. Wait, wasn't there also like a yellow elderly one?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God, Dragon Tales. Ooh, that brings back so many memories. So many memories. Back in a world where fantasy TV shows made sense.
Yep.
Oh my God. I mean, right now we live in a world animated fantasy TV shows. They're like rare.
Yeah.
Like literally, one of the recent ones is Legend of Vox Machina
Well, there was
that goes
also
full on fantasy.
and I kind of want to go back and binge it. I heard it wasn't the best show in the world, but I'm still kind of curious. Gallivant.
Let me check. Just Gala. What did you say? Galavant.
Gallivant. I think that was the name of it.
Oh wait. Oh wait.
It was like a,
Wait.
it was
What
a,
was?
it was like a comedy sort of musical.
Wait. What was the name? Yeah, Timothy Omundson was in
Yeah.
it. Yeah, the guy I know him from the Deadwood TV show. He was also he was in Deadwood. He was also in the live action Woody Woodpecker movie. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. In 2018. Like he was always for me an actor who had really strong charm.
One other thing
I
I
don't
just
know.
thought about too. This sort of goes a little bit into Marvel, but one of the best, just showing how fantasy can be really good. One of the best, in fact, I think for me the best season of Marvel's Agents of Shield dealt with season 4 with Ghost Rider, and then sort of sci-fi elements with the Framework,
Mm.
and like the Darkhold and everything. Like that fantasy element to that season, that for me, I mean, it was all the elements, but especially the fantasy with Ghost Rider and everything that
Yeah.
kind of made that season really, really cool. I think that's what really fantasy does for TV shows. It kind of adds like an element of what's the word? I don't know what word I'd use. It adds like some kind of like different kind of element or different kind of feel to a show. That kind of it draws you in.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. I'm just trying to. All sorts of stuff. Yeah, you know, actually, there's another like fantasy TV show. Actually, that there. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. There's another one actually that should be recognized a little bit more. The Dark Crystal.
A Dark Crystal.
It's a puppet like TV show. There was first a movie. Frank Oz was in it, and then they made a prequel like TV series for Netflix.
Frank Oz. I enjoyed him in The Wizard of Oz.
Well, technically, it wasn't him. Technically, it wasn't him. It was actually his great grandfather.
Ah.
You know, but I think like if you tell him that, I think he'll be very flattered. But you know, I don't think he will take his great grandfather's glory. Nah. No, I don't think he would. Yeah. Also, like there are other two shows I've watched that I will kind of put them, and actually three that I will kind of put like also in fantasy. That also I think like, you know, they should deserve to be watched. Like for example, Dota, Dragon's Blood. Also, I don't know if you ever watched it, like Castlevania.
Mm-mm.
Ooh, that's another actually great. It's based on a video game series, but it's actually a pretty good like fantasy TV show. And the third one I also remember is I mean, at first I wasn't interested, but then later on I kind of gave it a watch. It's actually pretty good. The Dragon Prince. It's kind of like a 3D anime style like TV show, and it's actually pretty good. It has a really interesting story. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that.
Yeah, all of the and also I mean it's kind of like a modern thing, but I will also say it. one of the best fantasy TV shows they're out there. I would say I will also add Gargoyles.
Yes.
Yeah, that is definitely also fantasy. Yeah, I mean Gargoyles, just like you mentioned way before, Troll Hunters. Gargoyles is also one of those fantasy TV shows that sometimes doing a story in the present time works. You know, so again, it all depends on how you're going to use it and in what way.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think like you and I, we can both agree we can wrap it up, right? Yeah, I think like we have yeah, I think like we can wrap it up because I think like we're almost 3 hours in this one. So I think our
the wheels came way off the bus. The wheels really came off the bus.
Literally, I do agree on that one. Without any like collateral damage.
Yeah.
But yeah, so overall, ladies and gentlemen, all like kings and queens, wizards, witches, goblins, giants, whatever. We have reached the end to another Shadow Council episode. I hope you enjoyed our very, 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 very long discussion about fantasy in general. I hope you have found something interesting in it. Maybe we give you some interest in some TV shows for you or movies to watch. I don't know. Anything is possible. But overall, you guys know the drill about subscription, about comments, liking, your own personal thoughts about fantasy. What was your very first experience in fantasy? Books, movies, TV shows, video games, whatever. Otherwise, give me your own personal thoughts about the video itself. Like always, Lord of Shadows signing off.
DK out. Mephisto's coming.
And in the good old-fashioned Beetlejuice words, later, fuckers.